K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Just after midnight, thousands celebrated what was once just a dream.
Gay couples are tying the knot legally for the first time in Connecticut.
And now, in the past week, both Iowa and Vermont.
Cheers in New Hampshire, where same-sex couples celebrated the first same-sex couple to legally wed in the nation's capital.
And judges across the state will be opening their doors today.
I'm glad that my parents are getting married.
Big wins for same-sex marriage.
Maine, Maryland, and Washington have become the first states to approve same-sex marriage by popular vote.
This is a historic day for Maryland. The Defense of Marriage Act was struck down and Proposition 8 effectively invalidated, again legalizing same-sex marriage in California.
Rhode Island and Minnesota are the latest states to legalize same-sex marriage.
Same-sex marriages are being recognized in the state of New Jersey.
And Hawaii will become the 16th state.
New Mexico has become the latest state. A federal judge has struck down Oregon's same-sex marriage ban.
A federal judge in Pennsylvania, as starting today, same-sex couples in Illinois can legally marry.
The United States Supreme Court here in Washington has now decided not to hear appeals on same-sex marriage.
The court's order immediately ends delays on marriage in these states.
More than half of all Americans now live in a state where gay marriage is legal.
A federal judge has struck down North Carolina's gay marriage ban.
We're going to take you to Alaska now.
Now legal in the state of Idaho.
Wyoming is the latest state.
It's in Montana.
South Carolina.
Same-sex marriage officially became legal in the Sunshine State at midnight.
The full-blown civil rights battle in Alabama.
So now 36 U.S. states and the District of Columbia currently allow gay marriages.
In a landmark decision, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that states cannot ban same-sex marriages.
What this means is that it is now the law of the land.
Okay, so who counted how many states? There was New Jersey, Texas. Oh, wait, that's all 50. I guess, as they would say, that's all, folks. The argument of gay marriage can now maybe kind of come to an end. I guess a little bit more so than it was before. But the issue on gay marriage doesn't matter anymore because at the end of the day, all 321 million Americans can legally get married to somebody of the same sex. Now, this is going to take some time. Several state governments have tried to delay it, but ultimately, at the end of the day, gay marriage is legal. The rainbow flag is now can be flown freely. Every single state, all 50 contiguous states in the United States of America, gay marriage is 100% now legal. It's finally, I guess, as one could say, about time. So, I guess this all started really in 2004 in Massachusetts. And 11 years later, the battle for gay marriage is finally over for the states. And you're going to hear a lot of people argue that gay marriage isn't right, that we shouldn't have gay marriage, that it's not, it goes against religion, it goes against this and that. And whether or not it goes against religion, that shouldn't matter. Because it goes against one's religious beliefs. It's for America. I believe that gay marriage is an American story about something that was not allowed, a right, a liberty that wasn't allowed, and is now allowed. And to me, that is more American than anything. Remember, our Constitution is like our Bible in this country, I would say. But that is exactly what we should be going off of, not off of religious belief. So to say that we can't pass a law because of, one's religious beliefs makes me feel a little un-American. And we should realize how monumentous this is for individual rights, that it is your individual right to choose to spend your life with whoever you want, and then now you can actually get the same economic rights because of that. We see that there were problems about people who wanted to get married and share the same, economic benefits, allowed to be in wills, allowed to be in hospital rooms, things of that nature. No, that's all gone because now you can legally get married. And I always hear the argument about, it's not that it's gay marriage, it's just that, it's marriage is so holy and we shouldn't destroy this holy ceremony. But that's a load of shit, because in this country we've allowed, you to get married in a drive-through wedding. Okay, so I don't think that the argument that this is a holy ceremony is very true. Okay, because people get married to idiots all the time. Okay, people get married, they get divorced. Marriage has become so unholy, and gays didn't even need to do anything for that to happen. That's just happened on its own. We're seeing less and less people are getting married now than ever before. Later in life, people are jumping into marriages far quicker. This is a problem in this country. The issue of marriage is a problem. And I think Rick just put out a good point. Would you like fries with your certificate? I mean, it's true. We're having weddings. The idea of two people coming together to wed has become so unholy. To say that some couple living together for years who weren't able to get married can now get married, that's not a problem. And we hear all these people talk, we are here to defend your individual rights, but then they go off and say how bad gay marriage is. Ted Cruz, he said it was the darkest 24 hours in American history, or one of them at least. To me, he's an idiot, and he's running for president, and he runs off the campaign of freedom this and individual freedom that. And you know what? He's for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. He's for, banning same-sex marriage. He's not a guy for individual liberty or freedom. He is a man who is for the big corporate interests, for his own interests, for the backing and supporters of the religious right. He's not a good politician, and he's sure as hell should not be your next president. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I was at what's known as Boys State, which is for high school juniors, rising seniors. It's a program run by the American Legion. People like Bill Clinton, Michael Jordan, Bob Menendez, many people have done this program. It's a very prestigious program. It's run by the American Legion. It's supposed to be the state's best and brightest, quote unquote, best and brightest. And I was there, and it's basically a Marine camp almost, with debate and politics thrown in. And you had to wake up very early, and you had to run around and all that. So I'm feeling a little bit under the weather my first night home. All right, so next, we're going to go to break soon, but I do want to ease ourselves into the next topic. We're going to be talking on another Supreme Court decision that we got to at the end of our last show. But we're going to talk about the Supreme Court's decision on Obamacare. They're ruling that Obamacare subsidies are going and they're here to stay. And 6.4 million Americans are going to keep their health insurance. And they don't have to be uninsured. We're going to talk about more of that when I come back. Let's go to break right now.
A show that will change internet radio as you know it.
Okay, so let's talk about the story, which I think is hilarious. I'm just going to refer to it as the poop plane because, like, what else are you going to call it? But there was this plane, okay? It took off. It's the British Airways. They were going to Dubai. I have a hard time pronouncing that one.
It was British
anyway,
Airways. It wasn't jet.
British
It wasn't jet poo.
It was.
Couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
I like it. This story,
BM
if
Airlines.
we've ever had a story that is up our alley, it's this one. It's bathroom humor up from front to back of the airplane, apparently. They had to turn around to go back to Heathrow because they said the smelly poo in the toilet became unbearable for passengers, and it was so bad. They decided it's so bad that they had to turn around and go back rather than continue their flight. They decided that there wasn't enough Febreze, there wasn't enough anything to handle this.
Maybe they should see a doctor. Is there a GoFundMe for this guy?
It must be a woman, because a woman's going to be mortified and embarrassed. If this is a guy, you know that he's like out there on Twitter and everything else saying, dude, I took down an airplane with how bad that I laid it down.
There was an old woman who flew on jet poo. She ate so many burritos she didn't know what to do.
So we turned the plane around because they made a big stink. We've just made it into a haiku at the end, but there had to be something.
Real Serious Nonsense, Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, now on K98 Talk.
I'm sorry about that. So we're now going to listen to a clip that's going to talk a little bit about Obamacare. So listen up. It's very short.
The law explicitly and repeatedly states subsidies are only available in exchanges established by a state. What Roberts said basically was that they're now available in an exchange established by a state or the federal government. He added to the law. Roberts' decision basically says that Congress didn't intend for any adverse policy effects to come from the law, and so the Supreme Court's job is to make sure that none come. Roberts frames his opinion as a kind of deference to Congress, saying we don't want to do too much damage to what they intended. We have to respect that. But in a lot of ways, what he really did was choose what Congress meant and decide that for them. Right now, a lot of states are struggling with technology that doesn't work and with trying to find ways to make the financing for their own exchanges sustainable. And Roberts' decision paves the way for them to move over to the federal exchange and solve some of their problems that way. For the most part, Roberts' decision simply preserves the status quo. At its most basic, this was a decision to allow things to stay basically the same.
Okay. So what this means, and that video was really to explain the significance of what Chief Justice Roberts has now done, shows that Obamacare seems, it survived its 2 rounds in the Supreme Court. It survived 50 chances to get repealed by Congress. I don't think that it's going to get repealed anymore. And what we see now is the Supreme Court has now officially said it's here to stay. And I get really pissed off at the idea that we keep trying to get rid of it and waste our time when there are bigger issues. Healthcare should be a right, a human right, that it shouldn't be determined by how much money you have in your pocket is the type of care that you can get. Everybody, if you have cancer, if you have leukemia, lymphoma, whatever, you should get the best treatment because this is the best country with the best medical care. But it seems that all too often, that is not what happens. And what actually happens is that our insurance companies dictate what kind of healthcare we can get for, what we need, what we can't get, and people lack their treatment. So that just seems inherently wrong, and that seems almost un-American, and it seems that this goes back to the issue. We have too much corporate control. That there's far too much corporate money, corporate power in our political system, especially when insurance companies, big agriculture, weapons contractors. These are industries that need to get, you pull them back. You break them up, you tear them down. Because they have way too much power. No insurance company should be able to sway congressmen and tell them what they need, what they don't need, fund their campaigns. Because then you know what happens? You get crappy laws. And when you get crappy laws, it doesn't affect the lawmakers because they're always going to have the best of the best, right? Don't forget, all the people in Congress and in the Senate had the same type of government health care that is now provided to everybody years before it was made. What we need is a healthcare system where everybody gets healthcare, everyone gets the best healthcare. We have, competition in the healthcare industry, but ultimately, where if you can't afford healthcare, and when you can't purchase healthcare, it doesn't matter because there's still healthcare for you. You don't go uninsured. You don't have to go to the emergency room. That is unacceptable. That is not how a first world country should live. We're the only major country in the world that for the longest time has not had access to healthcare for all of our citizens. And that's a huge problem. We bring in more money to this country than, there was some statistic out there, then it was like Japan, Korea, and all of Europe, or something like that, or the Scandinavian countries combined, something of that nature. And yet, all those countries have healthcare for the citizens, and we don't. Or we didn't. And we still have a shitty system as it is. So, what the Supreme Court has now done is basically said, no, we're going to go with what the intended policy was. Because, the Obamacare legislation, the 2,000-something pages, they obviously wouldn't intend for there to be a clause that would go against the bill. So the Supreme Court just reaffirmed that, and I think they made the right decision. In the sense, I think Obamacare itself is an insurance scam, though. Because they say, we have 14 million more people insured. Yes, and that is a good thing. But there's also 14 million more customers that are going to be paying into the health insurance companies, because let's not forget who wrote the damn thing. So ultimately, I think this is a win-lose. I really don't know. Because the win is that you're going to keep healthcare for millions of people. And they're going to have fair, clean, good access to healthcare. No more going to the emergency room for their healthcare. But on the flip side, insurance companies won, and they have had their power reaffirmed, and there's not going to be a big chance to stop them from this law. There's going to have to be a new rallying cry against big insurance, against big ag, against big weapons designers. We're going to need it, and it's going to come soon. Anyways, we're going to move on to our next topic. I mean, this obviously is not the end of that topic. There's going to be more to it. Next, we're going to hear from Bernie Sanders, who is polling better than you would expect. So this is him on Charlie Rose, the PBS show. And he's talking about his stance on the TPP, and he's also calling out Hillary Clinton on the TPP. So I'm just going to play this, and then we're going to talk about his poll numbers.
I have a lot of respect for her, and I intend to run this campaign not to personal attacks, but on issues. And Hillary Clinton and I disagree on a number of issues. The issue that is forefront right now, in the forefront, is this Trans-Pacific Partnership. I have helped lead the effort against them. I have been in opposition to all of these terrible trade agreements that have cost us millions of jobs. And I frankly don't understand how you could be a major candidate for president of the United States, Hillary Clinton or anybody else, and not have an opinion on that issue. You can be for it, you can be against it.
Well, let me tell you, you and Martin O'Malley and Hillary Clinton appeared before the AFSCME executive board this past week, I believe, and they asked I think separately, they asked all of you about it, and I am told by very reliable sources that what Hillary Clinton responded was, we don't know what's in the TPP yet. We don't know the details, so I can't take a position until I know what the details are.
Well, first of all, there's some truth to that, and that talks to the reason why you should vote against it. If a major bill, which deals with 40% of the world's economy, is coming before the United States Congress, and members of Congress don't know what's in it, you think it might be a good reason to vote against it?
Well, but it's not up yet. I mean, you actually voted on fast track. You didn't vote on the TPP.
Well, fast track is the key vote, because if fast track gets passed, TPP will get passed.
But her explanation to AFSCME doesn't cut it with you?
No, of course it doesn't.
Is it a cop-out in your view?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so just an FYI, fast track was passed, and as Mr. Sanders just said, if fast track gets passed, well, so will the TPP. So there goes that vote. But what I would like to just point out is that Senator Sanders doesn't dance around the question. Senator Sanders literally just called out Hillary Clinton, said, you are a major politician and you're going to tell me you don't have an opinion on the situation? I mean, if she is this major contender for president, her excuse is, well, I don't know, I haven't really read it. You know what? Fuck you. No, not a lot of people have read it. The people who've read it are actually sworn to secrecy, and it's like weird. It's like locked up, and it's kind of creepy. So to say that she doesn't know is a fib. She knows exactly what she wants, and I guarantee you she's pro the TPP because it'll give her an issue to talk about, and she can probably talk about it pretty darn well. And she can probably say how she's going to bring jobs and she wants to stabilize the economy because the TPP is going to be good for consumers because prices are going to go down. It's going to be bad for workers, and then it's going to be bad for everybody because, well, we're going to lose jobs, we're going to lose our liberty. We're going to lose our liberty in the sense that Philip Morris International can sue the state for running ads against cigarettes. So, I mean, that's just one instance about how lawmakers are going to be the bitches of corporations. Something that I literally would hate. And it's so unfair how these giant corporations have so much power because they have freaking money. Let's do something fun here, Imagine the richest person in the world. Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, take whoever you want. Then take their money away. Take the biggest CEO on Chase or JP Morgan. Take their money away. And then what? What do they have? They're a smart person. They know how to do something? No, they're nothing. So these people who have the most money are allowed to control everything when they're really no different. All they have is more green. And to me, it's disgusting how greedy this bill is, how much it is dictating or will be dictating the future of this country and the future of its people. Because ultimately, it's going to be pretty shitty when, some meat Purdue, whatever, sues some country because our meat standards are too high. I mean, we're going to have problems. And if this bill honestly goes through unchanged, we're going to have a big, big problem. The TPP is a terrible trade deal. It's run by the big corporations, and it's not for the American people. Anyways, I guess this would be a good time to transition a little bit, maybe into some different topics. So we covered, the TPP, we covered gay marriage. We're kind of going all over the place. We covered Obamacare. Next, I think it would be important to talk about a topic that came up a lot this weekend at Boise State in front of a lot of people. So I found it interesting that at Boise State is run by the American Legion, so obviously there was a more conservative tail, I guess, to it. And a lot of the young men there were conservative. And I'll tell you this. The most liberal part of the room when we were all assembled was where I was standing. That's where the liberal part of Boise State was literally where I was standing. And most people were pretty darn conservative, and I had some good debates. But on the social issues, on gay marriage, on legalizing marijuana, on a lot of those issues, people were left. On the social issues, they moved left. And surprisingly, on climate change, nearly 80% of the kids there believe that climate change is one of the top 3 issues that this world faces. So I guess what we could say is, the generation, the millennials, the one who I am, are left on social issues, and fiscally we're all over the board, it seems. But my point is to reaffirm a statement that I made in my last show, was that over time we move left, we push the social bar left. That progressive social change seems to always win out. And just look at history. And I always give these examples. We have women gain the right to vote. We have civil rights. Blacks gain the right to vote. We have the environmental movement, led by none other than Richard Nixon. The invention of Social Security. And obviously I'm not naming these in historical order, but which lifted millions out of poverty. We have the advent of unemployment insurance, which, again, held millions of people stay out of poverty. We had Glass-Steagall, which was later repealed, but then we had Dodd-Frank. So I guess in that sense we were a little shaky, and we still need to push the bar a little more left when it comes to banking. But the point is that we are constantly pushing left. And another example would now be gay marriage, where we are constantly pushing the bar socially left. Again, with abortion, that seems to win a lot, and now it's seeming to start losing. But again, pushing the ability for people to do what they want, it seems to be the common trend. It seems that the liberal agenda wins out long term when it comes to social issues. Here's the thing. In regard to this generation growing up, we seem to be more in agreement with each other than the past. And I would say that the past generation has really given us a very tight spot where we have a lot of problems to deal with. So this week at Boise State, I'm going to talk about 3 instances where I actually got to talk to some pretty powerful people. So this Congressman, Lawrence, he's from New Jersey, he's from the 7th District, he's a U.S. congressional congressman. I'll find his name out later, it's Lawrence something, came to speak. And I was lucky enough to get to ask him a question. He quoted Lincoln, saying that America is this world's last great hope, and he kept reaffirming that statement. So I get up and I asked him, I understand that you think America is the greatest country in the world, and that we have American exceptionalism, and to an extent I absolutely agree. But you say the world is in this world, America is this world's last great hope. But how can we be the last great hope when we are leading the charge on destroying our own planet? And he gave me a dip-de-doo answer. I mean, it wasn't exactly a straightforward answer that I was looking for. He kind of just played it off like a politician. But the room was very united in the sense that the last generation of people had very little consideration for the people of tomorrow. The next day, we had the Lieutenant Governor of New Jersey, Kim Guadino, I think her name is, I forget how to really pronounce her last name, spoke. And I asked her another question. I said, under your administration, it is no surprise that the state has incurred a lot of debt. Why are you targeting people like my father's, public teachers? Why are you targeting their pensions? Because you've led this state into so much debt. And she gave me this whole dip-de-doo answer about, unions being bad and this and that and the other thing. But in all honesty, the room again was united in the sense that shouldn't happen. That someone's hard-earned pension shouldn't be targeted because you have people who are irresponsible with your money and spend it on stupid things. Kind of like when you let $9 billion go and help your buddy at ExxonMobil keep their money. That might be an example. So, these are just a few examples of how I guess the past generation views things a little bit differently, especially politicians, I guess. And our generation views things far more to the left than ever before. And to say that we don't is kind of not true. I mean, look, it seems that on the issue of abortion, the issue of gay marriage, and the issue of climate change, on the issue of legalizing pot, all these issues, it seems that the overwhelming majority of people from my generation are siding with the left principles. All right, so we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, I'm actually going to play you a tidbit of a song, and we're going to start talking about some weed. We're going to talk about marijuana. I mean, why not, right? We've had a tough day. I guess it's time to unwind and talk about marijuana. All right, so Rick, if you could take us into break, and when we get back, we will talk about a very high up there topic.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve, as they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
Wondering why you're up early with us on a Sunday morning making a cocktail? News lately got you drinking? Hung over from the mainstream media by Sunday? We are, and we got you covered.
We sure do. We got your hangover cure for those weekly news blues. So sit back, top off your mimosa, and add some Baileys to that coffee.
Take a match to your copy of the New York Times. Light, funny, and oh yeah, news with booze.
And a lot of laughter.
Welcome to Bloody Marys and Broadsheets.
President, I come to you on behalf of my generation to talk to you about this little plant situation. See, a lot of politicians hate it. I'm gonna break it down and demonstrate to you why it's not as bad as they make it sound. See, you're the president that I believe can handle this. Heck, your campaign slogan was "Yes, we can." Just kidding, but seriously, let's examine this subject truthfully, dog. Look, see, you taught constitutional law at Harvard, right? In '96, well, you should know the Declaration of Independence was drafted out of hemp. So was the flag. So were the sails that pushed our ships on the path to the colonies. So what's the fuel used for Henry Ford's Model T? So in a sense, you could say that pot has actually driven American history.
Please, it makes you lazy and underachieved.
But how can that be when some of the most successful people smoke weed, from Walt Disney to Milton Fried, from Stephen King to Steve Jobs? The apple didn't fall from the tree. You get it? Steve Jobs, Apple, trees, Jobs created the Apple computer, high off weed. See, people believe that this plan is sinful. But let's go back in time and find out exactly where these beliefs came from. Because before the 1930s, you could blaze up, but after the 1930s, things changed up. Because that's when President Hoover commissioned a man named Harry J. Anslinger as head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. His middle name's ironic, because he was the main guy attempting to demonize marijuana. Cannabis sativa. See, the name marijuana he created as propaganda for the people to make it sound more dirty and a little more evilly. Figured if he could stir the public enough, they would want it illegal.
All right, so that's Prince EA. You can look him up. Just type in Prince, capital E, lowercase a. He does a lot of songs, and they're all about topics in society. This one is obviously about marijuana. So for the rest of the show, we're going to talk about this, and I have one other interesting video that I'm going to bring up, and it's kind of just to bust Rick up a little bit, get him a little angry while he's listening in the background. But I'll leave that one as a surprise. So, if we legalize pot, there's 300 economists who say we could save this country $3.7 billion. Well, we could bring in revenue totaling over $100 billion. The weed industry, it's so wrong to think that people can go to jail for smoking marijuana. It's so wrong to think that a drug that hasn't killed anybody would actually send somebody to jail. That is actually illegal. And every 13 seconds, somebody dies of alcohol. Every 6 seconds, someone dies from tobacco. And in the past 10,000 years, not one person has died because of the effects on the body of marijuana. But yet, it is illegal in this country, and it sends millions of people to jail to keep the private, jail industry with the huge lobby going. Thanks, Reagan, for that one. But if we think about this, it's so rooted in our society that, marijuana is this gateway drug, but there's nothing to support that at all. After study in our modern era of science and technology, that we cannot find one instance where we can affirm that argument holds true. Again, though, the prison lobby in this country is one of the biggest lobbies, and private prisons obviously make money off people going to jail. In fact, one private prison was just recently suing. You can look this up, because not enough people were in their prison, because there wasn't enough people being charged with what the hell's going on? Jeez, my home is like being torn down, it seems. There were not enough people going into that jail. So, because jails, again, make money off the flow of prisoners and the holding of prisoners. So, it's kind of interesting. But marijuana doesn't kill anybody, okay? We have millions of people serving time in jail because they have had marijuana. There's innate racism when it comes to making these laws, because we see that when white kids smoke a little bit of dope, nothing happens to them. But when black kids do, there's disproportionately amount. I think it's like 1 out of 3 children serving, or something like that. It was like 70% or something of that nature. It was a pretty big number. Percent of people serving behind bars for marijuana are black. But anyways, you know, we had presidents from Washington to Jefferson to Obama to Clinton to Kennedy. You know, we've seen all these presidents. I think Lyndon B. Johnson was known to do it. A ton of presidents, in all honesty, smoked pot. My grandmother actually once told me a story a couple weeks ago. We were eating dinner, and we were talking about the legalization of marijuana, and she was saying, you know, and I never really hear her talk too much about, like, I would never imagine her to talk about it, about marijuana. And she brought it up. And my grandma, just picture this, as a small little grandma, very by the book, you know, typical grandma. And she goes, you know, I don't get why they make a big deal out of marijuana. You know, it used to be so easy to get, and everyone would do it. I used to go down to my hairdresser, get some pot, and bring it back home, and me and your grandfather would smoke it. And me and my sister are sitting next to each other, and we stop eating. And we honestly had no idea what we just heard. My grandma just told me that she used to get pot from her hairdresser. I don't know if I have the coolest grandma ever, but I was dumbfounded by that. You know, but on a serious note, the power of cannabis, you know, in the health industry, what it could do would be amazing. We wouldn't have to use all these opiate-based drugs. We wouldn't have to use all these different types of drugs to handle people anymore. Marijuana has so many implications, and it would have such a big impact on our society, and it would bring in so much freaking money. If someone was supposed to fucking get high, let them get high, because it's gonna, you know what, fund my freaking books in school. We don't even have enough. So, to say that it's a bad idea is ridiculous. And to give the argument that, to give the argument that, you know, this will lead to more people getting high, right? How the hell is that true? Because you can get more marijuana than you could. It's easier to get marijuana for a kid than it is to get a cigarette. I know for a fact, if you walk down a hall in a high school and you really want to get some dope, you just gotta talk to that right kid. And in every freaking high school, there's that right kid that you know about. And, you know, drug dealers don't ID you. They don't. So I'm gonna play another video here. And hang on, we just gotta wait for this advertisement to go. We're gonna get talked about this video. It's actually pretty interesting. It's called Reagan. It's got by Killer Mike, and this is honestly just to piss off Rick a little bit, but it also carries a message about drugs, the 1980s, and a little bit about how we got to where we are now. So it's gonna run for 4 minutes. If you're conservative, you're probably never gonna want to watch my show again, but I don't agree with anything, with everything, just a little disclaimer. But it's actually pretty interesting. It's pretty popular on YouTube, and let's just give it a listen. It also gets a little offensive, but we'll talk about this in a minute.
Our government has a firm policy not to capitulate to terrorist demands, that no concessions policy remains in force. In spite of the wildly speculated and false stories about arms for hostages and alleged ransom payments, we did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages. The ballad of the bullet, some freedom or some bullshit. Will we ever do it big or just keep settling for little shit? We brag on having bread, but none of us are bakers. We all talk having greens, but none of us own acres. If none of us own acres and none of us grow wheat, then who will feed our people when our people need to eat? So it seems our people starve from lack of understanding, cause all we seem to give them is some ballin' and some dancing and some talking about our car and imaginary mansions. We should be indicted for bullshit we inciting, telling children death and pretending it's exciting. We are advertisements for agony and pain. We exploit the youth, we tell them to join the gang. We tell them dope stories, introduce them to the game. Just like Oliver North introduced us to cocaine in the 80s when them bricks came on military planes.
A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not.
The end of the Reagan era. I'm like Lemma 12er, old enough to understand the shit had changed forever. They declared the war on drugs, like a war on terror. But what it really did was let the police terrorize whoever. But mostly black boys, but they would call us niggas and lay us on our belly while they fingers on their triggers. They bruised on our head, they dogs was on our crotches, and they would beat us up if we had diamonds on our watches. And they would take our drugs and monies as they pick our pockets. I guess that's the privilege of policing for some profit. But thanks to Reaganomics, prison turned to profits. Cause free labor's the cornerstone of U.S. economics. Cause slavery was abolished unless you are in prison. You think I ambush it and then read the 13th Amendment. Involuntary servitude and slavery it prohibits. That's why they giving drug offenders time in double digits. Ronald Reagan was an actor, not at all a factor. Just an employee of the country's real masters. Just like the Bushes, Clinton and Obama. Just another talking head telling lies on teleprompter. If you don't believe the theory, then argue with this logic. Why did Reagan and Obama both go after Gaddafi? Invading sovereign soil, going after oil. Taking countries is a hobby paid for by the oil lobby. Famous in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Ahmadinejad say they coming for Iran. They only love the rich and how they load the poor. If I say any more, they might be at my door. Who the fuck is that? Staring in my window, doing that surveillance on Mr. Michael Rinder. I'm dropping off the grid before they put the lid. I leave you with 4 words. I'm glad Reagan dead.
All right, so before we got a little offensive there, they do bring up the guy killer brings up a pretty interesting topic. So I was talking about drugs and I was talking about pot and how the prison system is pretty fucked up and that it makes money off people being in jail for a little bit of pot. But he talks about really the war on drugs, the change in society, and how under the Reagan administration we see a clear shift into how lobbying has become what it seems to be far more powerful. And in the Reaganomics, that time period, we see, Don Regan enters in as the head of the Treasury, big money man on Wall Street. We see that there is a change, and the war on drugs begins, and that has been perhaps one of the biggest failures in this country, is that we're actually criminalizing drug users when, in all reality, using a drug is not criminal. You need help. You don't need prison time. So, in my opinion, what we should be doing is decriminalizing these drugs, all of them, or at least the large majority of them. And if you're addicted to drugs, you don't go to jail, you go get help. Because it just doesn't make sense to put somebody behind bars for doing, for smoking pot, for doing cocaine, for doing any of these drugs. And at the end of the day, don't forget that freaking prisons are making money off of this. And that money that they're making is going to their lobby, which is going to go to put politicians back to Washington. So think about it. Think about how the system works, and you should be really flipping angry right now to think the idea that our politicians are getting money, right? Because people are going to jail, because people are going to prisons, because people's lives are getting ruined, their campaigns get funded. Just saying. Just giving that a little FYI. We have such powerful corporations in this country. It's not even American anymore. It's not. It's portrayed to be. It's not. We have big problems in this country, and whether or not you agree with Killer Mike in this video, Reagan, and I encourage you to watch the music video. Maybe it'll put it a bit more in context. Whether you agree with it or not, I think it does raise a good point that there is so much money in politics. It's so corrupt that we go after these little minute issues such as drugs, and we make it into this huge problem. When in other countries in the world, a lot of these drugs are legal and they're done and dealt with properly and responsibly. So, and I don't want to hear the argument, well, they have different cultures. Well, no, but it's the same drug, and we're all people. So, that's a bunch of horseshit. But ultimately, people, we have to start raising more questions. Our government it's a flippin' problem. We shouldn't trust our government in the sense that there's so much money to be made for them. So they're going to pass bills like the TPP. They're going to wage war on drugs. They're going to protect their oil interests. They're going to do a lot of things that just don't make sense for the American people, but make sense for their campaigns, for their personal wallets. I mean, we really need some serious lawmakers to step forward, and we need an amendment, I would say, to get rid of Citizens United would probably be one of the first places to start, and then start literally attacking a lot of these industries and reforming a lot of bills, getting rid of private prisons, or at least reforming the private prison system so that they're not making money off people being in jail. That is a horrible system you got going there, and it's just not a good way to deal with people. That is terrible. But like Killer Mike said in his video, there's no reason that some drug offender should be doing double digits if he's sold drugs or bought drugs. To me, that just doesn't make sense. All right. Well, I'm going to wind things down today, and I just want to recap real quick. So we talked about gay marriage. It is obviously huge, and it's honestly something that you should celebrate. What's going to happen, you're going to hear people talk about bakeries and religious rights, but give them the finger, okay? The ruling on gay marriage is the most American thing that could have happened, okay? Giving people liberty, giving people freedom, that is American, okay? Don't let anyone tell you differently. We talked about the TPP and, Bernie Sanders and his call out on Clinton, and how he's now polling really well. He's only like 8 points behind Clinton. So, Bernie's burning up a storm, and he's in hot pursuit. We talked about pot. I let you listen to a song from Prince EA, which I encourage you all to go listen to. And now we just talked about the corruption of Wilson's Reagan. And, I will be sure that this topic is not far gone. We will definitely talk about it again. Next week, however, I plan to bring on a guest, and my topic is actually going to be a surprise. I don't want to spoil it. In regard, a little update about my show, Late Night Nation. I just got back, so I'm going to start working on it, and it should be in the works soon, so I'll keep everybody updated. Before I go, I just want to say, today is a day to enjoy the victory of liberty for the gay community. But do not forget, do not be shadowed, or do not be thrown in the shadows. There are still bigger problems that this world faces. And although it's great to celebrate the victory that the LGBTQ community has won, we have not won as a society. When bills like the TPP are still out there, when people are thrown in jail for small drug offenses, when corporations are lobbying our politicians to make laws off the basis that it's good for profit, not for people. So today, celebrate the victory of liberty, but don't stop fighting. All right, that's what we got for today, and I'll be back next Saturday, and we're going to talk more about Opinion Nation News and Late Night Nation. And by the way, on Facebook, Opinion Nation News has got a post that got 77 likes, and we have 3,600 likes, so keep them coming. All right, Rick, if you could just close us out for today. That's
Welcome
all, folks.
to Opinion Nation.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are creative.
I, too, am American.